much ado. It's a great honor to have the leaders in governance on the stage, and especially the Secretary IT, who has agreed to be here. It's part of his busy schedule, and also Anil Swarupji. So may I request the Secretary IT to kindly deliver the keynote address and give us his vision for implementation of cloud in the governance sector. So, welcome, sir. Please give me a big hand, please.
Good evening, friends. Anil Swarupji and my other colleagues on the dais, Ravi Gupta ji, all the important people in the audience, officers, people from the industry, academia. Ravi had invited me some time back to participate in this conference, and this is CloudGov. And honestly speaking, I have not used the cloud as yet. I've heard about the cloud, that we have private cloud, government cloud, Meghraj, all kinds of names I've heard, but I have not really had the experience of using the cloud till about a year back. And people also had a lot of concerns and their own thoughts as to how secure this infrastructure is, whether we can put our data, and considering the fact that some of our data is very confidential and we don't want to share it with others, and whether one puts on the cloud, what will be the fate of that data. So there are a lot of concerns around the usage of cloud, especially in the government sort of departments and people. And I think this is a very timely workshop and seminar which you are holding, which will, and I'm sure the deliberations today must have dealt on the issue, many issues, and I see Renu is here and many other people are here who would have given their perspective on how we propose to take this forward. Honestly speaking, the basic, when we implement the e-governance projects in the state, and we have been doing it since last about 10-15 years, one of the issues was that, where do you put your data? And then the government of India under the NEGP had come up with a program of, creating certain basic infrastructure, which is the common service center and the delivery and statewide area networks at sort of transmission ends would transmit the data. And the state data center at the state level, which should keep this data. And though this entire thing was, some of the components were supposed to be outsourced, nevertheless, the efforts required in making those buildings for data center themselves consume a lot of energy and efforts. And as you know, these building projects never complete on time. And even if they do, there are always some, lacuna and some problems. So the one in, for example, in my state of Jharkhand, when I was working there last time, about 5 years back, at that time we had started the state data center, and when I went back about a year back as chief secretary there, I found that the data center was not complete. Some inquiries were being, done as to how the PWD engineers who had given the contract, why they had done a substandard work and all kinds of things. So actually what has happened is that in the process of building these data centers, somehow many states have not succeeded and a lot of problems have come. In the meanwhile, they are getting their things done through some minor small data center, some 1 or 2 rooms somewhere, and some of the applications are being hived off to NIC data centers in the state. So all kinds of permutations and combinations are being done. And at this point of time, the cloud and the government cloud, which gives the confidence to the users, will certainly be able to redeem that problem to a very large extent. And now that we have this Government of India Cloud Meghraj, the need is to now migrate those applications to this cloud, A, and secondly, wherever we have the data centers which are complete, those data centers must be integrated and become a part of this cloud. So every data center must be converted into virtualized and then made a part of this cloud. So that way I think we can work forward. I also have this feeling that when we go in for procurement of hardware for our data centers, that procurement itself is a huge exercise. And considering the fact that many times these computers and these systems become outdated no sooner they have been purchased, that creates another problem. That by the time the procurement cycle is complete, there are new models have come and this model which we procured is not really. So essentially, rather than getting bogged down into making buildings for the data center, getting bogged down into procurement of the hardware for keeping your data, I think this concept of the cloud represents a very neat and welcome departure from those problems, and one can focus on application building rather than focusing on building the data centers. So I think it's a very novel and very good development which has taken place. What is, however, required is, again in this whole issue of dog in the manger kind of approach, where suppose we asked in Meghraj, okay, how much do you want? Everybody says, I want 20 racks, I want 30 racks and things like that. So everybody, they don't have the requirement, but they kind of, just say that this is what is my claim or this is what is I want. And nobody is using it as yet. But if I ask Renu how much space is left, she says everything is sold out. Now that again is a very skewed way of. So essentially we have decided that you may say you require 20 racks, and I will give you an assurance that I will give you 20 racks. But you can't say that nobody should use those 20 racks. I will ensure that you have no dearth of space or compute for the applications which you load onto the data center. But then that should not ensure that while nobody is using the data center, it's all booked and the person who wants to use it is not able to use it. But that's the whole purpose of the cloud is essentially to have a flexibility in terms of uses. There are peaks in every application. For example, when you have the transport, the taxation, the deposits take place, or even the income tax, there's a huge peak in the month of March or July when you file the returns. And on the other places, the other times it's all dull. Similarly, there's a peak when in the examination system the results are out or some competitive exam is taking place. This data center will take care of all that, because while there is one application which has the peak requirement, the other applications will not have that requirement, and you can always sort of provision. So it becomes like a consolidated fund of India, where every revenue is deposited and you take out as and when you need it. There is one large bucket from which you take out as per your need. So I think this whole issue, this problem will also be resolved. What is, however, required is, what I find as difficult is, we should put in place a very clear guidelines for our states, and I think the industry can help us in doing that, as to how they go on procuring this data center, the cloud space. What is the methodology to do it? Because we are still grappling with the RFPs for the hardware. Now you are telling us that the cloud space you procure, and what is the way out? How do we do that? What are the SLAs for that? So essentially we need to really create an environment and capacity building of our people in the state level and lower levels to figure out as to how they could ride on the cloud. So that's one thing which needs to be done. Unless that is done, we will all keep on talking the cloud, but nobody will be able to access that cloud. So while we are saying that we have this cloud, that cloud, but nobody is really doing it because they don't know how to access this cloud. So this is one thing which we should do. The second thing which we should do is that such workshops or information dissemination, knowledge dissemination must take place at the state level. where people, large number of, here the state, some secretaries may come, some commissioners have come, but that really does not give, when you go to the state, then you talk to the secretaries and other officers who are users, potential users of the cloud. If they could be kind of brought into this side, and they could be, their capacity could be built, their knowledge base could be built, so that they know how to access this. So this effort to disseminate this information has to take place at the state level, so that people become more comfortable with cloud. Basically, all kinds of FAQs may be put on, many questions people have got as to what happens of my data, whether I can sort of see the data, who will take the backups and all those. Currently they have a physical thing which they can see, and they can kind of take the backups or do other maintenance jobs. Now if it's a cloud, what is the security of the data, what is the content of the data, all those questions need to be answered, and I think this is the right way to go forward. We also, for example, when I joined DeitY about a month back, and I found that the mission mode projects, and there are about 34 of them, some are central projects, some are state ones, some are integrated ones. Some of these projects are using technologies which have become pretty obsolete. So for example, and some of these projects actually predate the National E-Governance Plan, which was launched in 2006. So you will be surprised to know that while on the one hand today we are talking of cloud, there are some projects which are being done on client-server technology. So basically, for example, the transport project which I was reviewing this evening itself, most of the data resides in the district transport officer or the RTO's office, and it works on the client-server mode. And when I asked as to why it works on that mode, they said connectivity is an issue. So on the one hand, we are very comfortable that SWANs have been in existence and no RTO's offices below the district level. There is no reason why a district level office cannot be connected, cannot have the connectivity. So this is a very strange way, when you ask the application developers, they blame it on connectivity. And when you ask the connectivity provider, they say, no, we have all the connectivity and we have the SWANs operational everywhere in the whole country. So this kind of thing, many of these applications, they require to be restructured, revisited, probably rewritten, so as to leverage the latest. And what to talk of cloud, they should basically be leveraging the entire, first of all, web-based technologies is the minimal thing which they should do. They should effectively use the cloud. They should also effectively use the delivery mediums which have been created. Mobile telephony, where mobile is there, and all the applications must essentially be able to deliver information and services on the mobile platform. And that is the capability which we need to build into these applications. So I also find in the government, there are many applications which need to be rewritten. Unfortunately, what happens? The application development, as we all know, when it, 10 years back or 15 years back it took place, some applications were written. And then somebody said, I need this additional functionality. Then some patch was provided for. So ultimately, this whole application has now become a patchwork. And it's very difficult, even the maintenance becomes very difficult, very clumsy. It becomes like a spaghetti code. So this whole architecture now I think can be completely restructured, completely redesigned, because we now know the functional requirements of that application. We have been working with that application. We also know the new technologies, new things which have come into existence. And therefore we need to rewrite. And all those applications which are written now must take into account the existence of the cloud, the existence of the broadband, the existence of the delivery mediums. All these things must be taken into account. Secondly, there are many new services which can be built, because at that time mobile was not there, at that time cloud was not there, at that time web services were not developed. Now we can restructure them. So I think one effort which we are making in the Department of IT is to basically evaluate all the MMPs which are there and see if there are opportunities for technology upgradation in those MMPs. And if there are, we must leverage them and we must really make them cloud compatible. There is another area which actually can be leveraged, and that area is that there are applications which are, same application has multiple instances housed in multiple data centers of each state, if not client server. Even the web-based application is essentially housed in various state data centers. And each one is trying to mutate and modify that application. So today we have 35 versions of that application. And we really have no compatibility. Maybe some application is doing something else. There is no consistency. So now, given the cloud and given the fact that we can have multi-tenancy on these infrastructure, it is possible to have a single application hosted at a single server having different databases, and the same application. Now the problem of deployment will go away, problem of having multiple instances will go away. So therefore there is a need to converge all these versions of these applications and host them onto the Meghraj or whatever other clouds we may have. So I think in this scenario there is a huge opportunity which exists in actually redesigning these applications to kind of take into account the latest development in technology. The government now, which has the new government, has put a lot of emphasis on technology, on e-governance, and I think governance and development have been the basic agenda of this the government. And that yesterday in President's speech also you must have found the mention of a lot of e-governance efforts which are going to be undertaken. And I am sure we will all together, and all the departments in the government, both at the state level and the central level and municipal levels, will make efforts so as to really leverage the latest and the best in technology. Just now Korat was giving a presentation on Aadhaar. I would say this is the first identity on the cloud. The Aadhaar is actually a case of a digital identity on the cloud, which can be accessed and authenticated by anybody, anytime, anywhere, and which can be combined with any application. So today, honestly speaking, my feeling is, for example, we are having this whole, we have smart driving licenses, smart card. Now, I asked this question to my friends. I said, look, you have a smart card and a driving license. How many times how many readings of this smart card driving license have taken place during the last 10 years that you have these smart card driving licenses? How many readers have been installed at the police stations to read these smart card licenses? And how has that smartness of the smart card, how has that smartness been used? Just tell us. There's no instance. Honestly speaking, there's not even probably maybe the cases, if not there will be in hundreds, if not in thousands. That's the level. So we have actually wasted this entire 150 rupees is the cost of that smart card. So the smart card fellows have become more smart and maybe more rich. It has not contributed anything. Now you have a technology. Suppose there is a vehicle data or driving license data on the cloud, somewhere on the data center, and you have a smartphone or you have a SMS, and somebody shows you the driving license, and the policeman wants to check whether this driving license is current, valid, what is the penalty and all that. He just punches the driving license number and comes back the response that this is the driving license, it belongs to Mr. X and he has had 3 challans and 3 penalties and all, whatever. So what is the need for having intelligence into the local system? The entire application should now move on to have no intelligence at the front end, and the entire intelligence and processing power converge at the back end. That is the model, and that is the cloud. So we must actually, again, coming back to the same thing, we must read in on all these things, and we must challenge every assumption and every design. What is the value add of this design? If I have a smart card, why should I have a smart card? Why can't I have a beautiful plastic card? And that plastic card will have a number, and that number can have a QR code, and you can read that code and immediately you can get the response from the single source of truth. So that's how the entire architecture has got to be changed. And I'm sure this conference has succeeded in that mission to educate and create the awareness and spread the message that cloud is the order of the day now, and we need to move on to the cloud.